They kept Grandad's skull in the house. Not a photo of him, not a jar of ashes, the actual skull, dug back up, scrubbed clean, and fitted with a brand new face made of plaster. For the eyes, they pressed in 2 seashells, which is either the most tender thing you've ever heard or the reason nobody volunteered to dust the shelf. And before you decide they were the odd ones, you do this too. The ashes on the mantelpiece, the voicemail you still won't delete, the photo you quietly say goodnight to. We just got quieter about it. So why did people 9,000 years ago turn their dead into household faces? And could this one domestic habit be the seed of every afterlife belief that came after? Here's how you make one. First, and this is the part nobody warns you about, you wait. The body went into the ground, under the floor of the house, until the soft parts were gone. Then the skull came back up. The jaw was taken off almost every single time, and then, layer by careful layer, they rebuilt a whole face on the bone. The cheeks, the brow, the nose, all in soft plaster. It is, technically, some of the oldest sculpture on Earth. It is also your Nan. And they did not do a rushed job. They wanted it to look alive. Into the empty sockets they set seashells, so the face seemed to gaze right back at you. They painted on the skin, the hair, the features, and on some of them they painted a moustache. Let that one sit. Someone, 9,000 years ago, stood over the skull of a man they had loved, picked up a brush, and thought, he just wouldn't be himself without the tash. These were not sealed away in a tomb and forgotten. The faces show wear, the soft polish of being touched, lifted and held year after year. They lived in the home, on a shelf, in a corner, by the door, wherever you'd keep someone you weren't ready to lose. So you'd reach for the salt, and there's Great Uncle, watching, forever, not blinking on account of the seashells. So who earned a second face? You might picture the chief, the warrior, the big, important man. But no. Most were grown men, yes, but plenty were women, and some were children. There's no pattern at all in who got chosen, which is somehow the eeriest part. It wasn't about rank. It was about missing someone. And when a family finally was ready to let go, the head didn't travel far. It went back into the earth, under the floor of the very house they were living in. So you slept, you ate, you argued, you raised your own kids, directly on top of your grandparents. The dead weren't in a cemetery across town. They were the foundation. One of these faces is so finely made that a modern scholar reviewed it like a gallery piece, praising the skill, the anatomy, even what she called the dreamy expression of the eyes. It is a glowing art review of a 9,000-year-old corpse. Now, try this at home. Dig up a relative, clean off the skull, paint a lovely face on it, and stand it on the bookcase. You will not be called an artist in full command of their craft. You'll be a case number, with the word disturbed at the top of the file, a small sketch of the skull stapled beside it, and a follow-up appointment you will not be allowed to miss. Not everyone buys the loving relative story. A few experts floated another idea, that these weren't family at all, but trophies. The severed heads of beaten enemies kept as grim souvenirs. Which means someone looked at a skull with seashell eyes, a tenderly painted face, and a careful little moustache, and concluded, yes, that is the head of a man we absolutely despised. For the record, there is almost no evidence for it, but I do love that somebody tried. Strip away the seashells and the moustaches. And what is this really? It's a refusal. A refusal to let the dead be fully gone. You keep the face. You keep it close. You talk to it. And that, many scholars think, is the beginning. The first flicker of ancestor worship. The seed of the idea that the dead are still here, still watching, still owed a quiet word now and then. Today, those faces sit in glass cases in London, Oxford, Toronto, and Sydney, climate-controlled, catalogued, and roughly 9,000 years from where they were supposed to be. We've changed the venue, not the urge. We put our dead behind glass, or inside an urn, or in a phone we can't quite bring ourselves to wipe. They kept them in the living room. We bury the practice now. They just buried the skull under the floor, where, if you stood very still, you could feel it right beneath your feet.